Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 12th of December. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting, from Jerusalem. 5 members of a family were injured in an attack by a suspected Palestinian terrorist who threw acid at them a short time ago. The incident unfolded in Gush Etzion, just outside Jerusalem, at a checkpoint in the West Bank between Hassan and Beitar Illit. 3 young children between the ages of 8 and 10 suffered burns to their limbs and other light wounds, and their 40-year-old father's eyes were burned when the suspected terrorist threw acid at a group of families, splashing the 5 victims. Eyewitnesses say that the assailant then attempted to attack people in the vicinity with a screwdriver, and the rampage only came to an end after he was shot in the leg by an armed civilian. Border police forces rushing to the scene also opened fire at the assailant as he attempted to flee, hitting him in the chest. He was then captured, arrested, and taken to a local hospital for medical care. The attack came as security was being bolstered in preparation for an increase in violence following this week's death of a Palestinian minister during a clash with IDF troops. No restrictions, however, were placed on Muslim worshippers attending Friday prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem's Old City. Government officials are calling for the international community to condemn not only this morning's attack on Jerusalem's embassy in Athens, but the incitement campaign against Israel. Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nachshon expressed appreciation to the Greek authorities for their close cooperation in investigating the incident, but said that the blame for the firing of a Kalashnikov assault rifle at Israel's diplomatic compound should be placed on the Palestinian Authority and pro-Palestinian organizations around the world who continuously engage in anti-Israel propaganda. The 4 unidentified gunmen who carried out the attack on 2 motorcycles have yet to be apprehended. There were no injuries, although bullets were lodged in embassy walls, and 15 spent bullet casings were found about 40 meters away. In election news, the first opinion polls taken since the announcement of a joint list by Labour Party leader Isaac Herzog and Hatnuah head Tzipi Livni are revealing a positive public response. Surveys from both the Jerusalem Post and Channel 2 show the tag team would gain more seats than Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, although the Post gives Herzog and Livni a 4-seat advantage, while Channel 2 shows a lead by just a single mandate. Both show Economy Minister Naftali Bennett's Habayit Yehudi coming in as the 3rd largest party. And the good news for the Likud camp is that the right-wing bloc is still larger in both polls. And when asked by Channel 2 which candidate is better suited to serve as prime minister, Netanyahu led with 36%, while the prospective rotating premiership of Herzog and Livni scored 3 percentage points less. Former Interior Minister Gideon Sa'ar has announced that he will not be running in the Likud primaries, dispelling rumors that he was planning to challenge Prime Minister Netanyahu for party leadership. Sa'ar unexpectedly quit politics in November in a surprise move. His decision to refrain from tossing his hat into the Likud leadership race follows the endorsement by the faction's Central Committee on Wednesday of Netanyahu's proposal to move up the internal elections from January 6th to December 31st, which essentially gives challengers less time to organize. And that, in fact, was the reasoning that Sa'ar gave when announcing his decision to not run in a posting on his Facebook page. Another country's parliament has been added to those calling for recognition of a Palestinian state. This time it was the French Senate, although the vote was a little tighter than predicted. The resolution was adopted with 154 in favor and 146 against, 10 days after the French National Assembly passed the proposal in a symbolic vote. The move comes amid an increasing wave of European impatience with the stalled peace process between Israel and the Palestinians, and only 2 days after the Irish government passed a similar proposition. While centre-right UMP party senator and former French Prime Minister Jean-Pierre Raffarin said that the motion should be seen as a call for peace, his fellow party member, Roger Karouche, said that it reflects the division of the French Senate into 2, and that such a call for government recognition of Palestine should have been close, if not unanimous. A recent poll of the French public revealed that 60% support a Palestinian state. Here at home, the French vote has been met with disappointment and criticism.
Very easy for Europe to say that Israel should give up territory. Europe's history with the Jewish people and with Israel is really not something that leads us to respect or trust Europe's judgment on what will lead to long-term Israeli survival. But we thank you for your opinions.
Quite frankly, I don't think they'll be happy with anything less than the whole area. It doesn't work. We've been trying for how many years to give them a little this, a little that, and it's always just never enough.
Preparations are being set ahead of the slated meeting between Prime Minister Netanyahu and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in Rome at the start of next week, including the setting of an agenda for their talks. The latest summit follows increasing United Nations proposals to create a Palestinian state, including a resolution circulated by Jordan to the 15-member United Nations Security Council last month, calling for Israel to withdraw to the 1967 lines by November of 2016. U.S. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki acknowledged that the increasing number of countries pushing for action on the issue warrants discussion with Israel, the Palestinians, and key members of the international community. And she said that the Netanyahu-Kerry talks will include the UN proposal for Palestinian statehood. She also responded to a question whether the United States would consider not vetoing such a resolution.
Certainly, the topic of the range of proposals that are out there and the growing number of countries that are pushing for action on this issue at the UN will be a part of their discussion, and it's part of the reason that they're meeting. We believe this warrants discussion with Israel, as it does with the Palestinians, as it does with a number of partners in the global community, and the Secretary has found that face-to-face diplomacy is often very effective when it comes to these difficult and complicated issues. There hasn't even been a proposal tabled, so I'm certainly not going to get ahead of where that stands or what we think on different proposals, because we believe that these sort of discussions and diplomacy should be private.
Why are these discussions necessary now? I mean, given that there are a few proposals on the table, but if you ask anybody within the UN, they don't think anything's going to come of it immediately, and that it's still a process over the next 6 months. Why is this meeting necessary now?
Well,
something happened.
It's nothing more complicated, Leslie, than the fact that there are a growing number of proposals out there, a growing number of countries that are pushing for action. Obviously, the UN are the experts on when action might happen, when a proposal may be tabled. As you know, many in the United States, including the Secretary, and many in Europe will descend into holiday vacation for some time. So the Secretary felt this was an important meeting to have.
3 young men arrested for the arson attack on Jerusalem's mixed Jewish-Arab school have been named following the lifting of a gag order on their identities. All hold criminal records. 22-year-old Jerusalem resident Yitzhak Gabai, 20-year-old Shlomo Twito, and his 18-year-old brother Nachman were arrested last week and have all confessed to the attack. All 3 are members of the far-right Lehava organization that is strongly opposed to coexistence, particularly intermarriage and Jewish assimilation. The suspects not only admitted to burning the hand-in-hand school last Saturday night, but also to taking part in violent protests against the Rami Levy supermarket chain for employing Arabs. Gabai was arrested last February for possessing brass knuckles and again in May for incitement to racism when he posted signs against Christianity during the visit of Pope Francis to Israel. The 2 brothers come from a 16-member family in Beitar Elite. The older of the 2, Shlomo, was arrested just a few weeks ago for assaulting a police officer and disturbing the peace at a rally after the Har Nof terror attack in Jerusalem. The younger brother, Nachman, was charged with spitting on a nun and a priest walking past him a month ago, and for the illegal possession of a knife in May 2012. A secure agreement with the Palestinians can be reached, capable of reassuring the justified fears of the skeptical Israeli public. This, according to Yesh Atid chairman Yair Lapid, while addressing the Jerusalem Post diplomatic conference.
The Israeli public has shown understandable skepticism to the idea of removing settlements since the disengagement in 2005. Who can blame us? We did what the whole world wanted us to do. We left Gaza. And instead of building schools and hospitals, the Palestinians brought Hamas to power, built terror tunnels and rocket launch sites, and attacked serene Israeli communities. A regional agreement will not provide us with a hermetic solution against terror, and we will not leave our security in anyone else's hands. But the regional agreement might give the Egyptians, who already work to keep the Sinai quiet, and the Jordanians, who have also maintained their peace treaty with us, a role in helping us ensure our own security. Simultaneously, Israelis will begin to feel the economic importance of such an arrangement. The Arab world, as a trading zone, includes countries which seeks our technology in water, agriculture, and healthcare. Our GDP and the income of every Israeli will rise. It won't be easy. It won't be immediate. Israel has been damaged before by deals which have been broken. After the Oslo Accords, we experienced the terror of 1995. After the Barak Arafat talks at Camp David came the Second Intifada, which claimed the lives of over 1,000 Israelis. After the disengagement from Gaza in 2005, as I mentioned, came the rockets and terror tunnels. We must not ignore all that. We must not compromise on the security of the citizens of Israel, not even an inch. That is why we won't be able to undertake a process like this without the support of our friends in the world, first and foremost, the United States. Our relations with the US require rehabilitation after Netanyahu, but the United States can take a proactive role in a regional summit by bringing the sides to the table and providing guarantees for any progress. We will begin walking that path without knowing where it ends. But there is one truth that applies wherever people live. The cost of war is greater than the cost of hope. I don't have the right to stand by while another generation of young Israelis grows up in the middle of an ongoing conflict. War is not and cannot be a way of life. We should turn to the Arab League and begin negotiations which will lead to a regional agreement and a separation from the Palestinians. Thank you all very much.
The international community is, of course, watching the upcoming elections to see what Israel's next government will be. IBA's Eli Wogelenter asked Jerusalem Post diplomatic reporter Herb Kanan how the outcome could impact diplomatic relations around the world.
I think in general, the world is not going to be put on hold waiting for us to decide what we want. I mean, there's certain processes out there that are continuing. Abu Mazen, the Palestinian Authority president, said he is going to the UN Security Council regardless of the elections. The votes in the European Parliament, yesterday was in Ireland, today it's in Denmark, next week it's in the European Parliament. Those are going to continue. So that momentum or that movement will continue. That's not going to stop. What will stop, as Kerry said, as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said, they're not going to push for negotiations to restart now until after the elections.
The international community doesn't like to see a right-wing government, even a center-right-wing government in Israel, despite the fact that the electorate keeps voting for it. Can we expect to see interference from the international community in this election to help get the left or center-left voted in?
Look, there's always interference. I mean, all over the world. Governments are going to try to impact on our elections. I think they'll try to do it subtly. I don't think they're going to come out and say vote Herzog and Livni, but I think that subtly you're going to get messages who they want. It's no secret. And I think everybody realizes this. I think the Israeli people realize this as well. There's been, the U.S. in the past has subtly involved itself in the Israeli elections. They did so in 1992 in the elections between Shamir and Rabin when they shut off the housing loan guarantees. That was a big issue in the campaign. In 1996, Bill Clinton came out strongly for Shimon Peres against Bibi Netanyahu. I think, this is something that always happens. I think we're going to see it, but we won't see it perhaps as blatantly as we've seen it in the past.
The issue of the Palestinians going to the United Nations seeking recognition, official recognition as a state, can Israel stop that at this point?
In order for that to pass, the Palestinians need 9 positive votes in the Security Council. Those votes aren't guaranteed, even though on January 1st they're going to get a much more favorable Security Council than they have now. And then secondly, you have the U.S. veto. I find it hard to believe that the U.S. administration would not veto a resolution that essentially rolls back UN Resolution 242, which calls, for land for peace, withdrawal of territories, but not withdrawal of the territories. For the U.S. not to veto something like that would be a rollback of nearly 50 years of U.S. Middle East policy.
It would be a fundamental break in the relationship.
It would be a drastic change in the direction of the relationship. And I remind you, Ellie, that the U.S. Congress coming into power in January is strongly, strongly very pro-Israel.
2 boys aged 12 and 13 have been arrested for trying to rob a bank in Rishon LeZion with toy guns. Security camera footage shows the suspects in hooded sweatshirts as they entered the bank, with one wearing a backpack and carrying what appears to be a rifle. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld said that both were carrying fake M16s that looked very real and succeeded in frightening the others who were inside. After shouting that this is a holdup, the boys apparently lost their nerve and ran outside without taking any money. They were picked up and charged after police used the surveillance video to identify them. Increasing demand for supersized printed glass panes motivated Diptech to create the largest digital printing device on the planet. We get more in this report. Just taking a look at the Kfar Saba building where Diptech is based reveals stunning handiwork in the form of an architectural facade comprised by enormous, colorful glass panes made by the company. Its new, nearly 21-meter-long digital ceramic in-glass printer set a new world record at this year's Glass Tech show in Dusseldorf, Germany, and is capable of producing a single pane of glass up to 18 meters in length and 3.3 meters in width. So far, just 2 of the award-winning AR-1-8000 printers have been manufactured, with one operating in Germany and the other in China. The company's CEO says that the decade-old company entered the revolution of digital printing arena to manufacture the large-size printers because of the rising demand for increasingly large single-pane pieces by architects around the world.
In the real world, people, they love to see big things, especially when we're talking about streets and cities and building. It's getting bigger and bigger, and there's no margin between the panes or between the different subjects. But everything is like a picture. Everything is like, see big is great.
Diptech's creations can be used not only for impressive glass exteriors, such as this building in Haifa, but also portraits and other artwork. The company's products are now found in projects abroad, too, from New York's Harlem Hospital to the Origami Building in France and the Melinda Consortium in Italy. At first glance, the printer may resemble similar machines, with an image being sent to the printer and ink then injected onto the glass. But the drying process takes time, and the transfer and installation of the huge panes is, well, a pain that has been lessened by Diptech's invention.
It's a huge, huge achievement. Engineering-wise, it's not easy to design, manufacture, build, integrate, and make it happen and work. It's a 22 meters in length machine. It has to be very accurate.
It's not just size that counts. Diptech also takes pride in its unique patented ceramic ink.
We took the idea of getting digital on glass. Part of it was the ink itself. And we are the only company who can produce and manufacture a ceramic digital ink for the glass industry. And this is a great IP, and it's involved a lot of patents together with the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and us. And we are the only one, and we have a high protected intellectual property.
Right now, the end results are being tailor-made for high-end customers, but the company is hoping to not only improve the resolution and size, but to devise less costly methods of manufacturing to make the stunning works more affordable. Turning now to arts and entertainment, and the nominations for the prestigious Golden Globe Awards for Excellence in Film have been announced, including an entry from Israel. Get, The Trial of Vivian Amsalam, is directed by Shlomi Elkabetz and his sister Ronit, who also plays the title role. The story portrays the struggle of an Israeli woman to obtain a divorce from her husband as her 5-year period battle entirely takes place in a courtroom. This is the final film in a trilogy following To Take a Wife and The 7 Days. The movie was nominated for the Best Foreign Language Film, along with entries from Sweden, Estonia, Russia, and a joint enterprise from Poland and Denmark called IDA, following the story of a young orphaned woman named Anna who is about to take vows as a nun in 1962 when she suddenly finds out that she's Jewish and sets off on a journey of self-discovery about her religious beliefs and her family's past. The 72nd Golden Globe Award ceremony will be held on January 11th. In sports news, Maccabi Tel Aviv secured second place in its EuroLeague group with an 82-71 victory over Zagreb in Croatia last night. The win boosts Tel Aviv's record to 6-3 with one game left in the group. Maccabi fell behind 15-5 in the first quarter before rallying to take the lead and hold on for the victory. Devin Smith led Maccabi with 14 points, while Yogev Ohayon and Alex Tyrus each had 13. In local finance, the shekel again increased in strength against all major foreign currencies. And due to the closure of the stock market on Fridays, here's a look at the closing numbers for the week. Turning to the weather, and we're going to see isolated overnight rain showers in the northern and central regions with partly cloudy conditions and significantly cooler temperatures throughout the country tomorrow. Here's the forecast to home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope to see you again tomorrow, and I'll be back to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a wonderful evening and Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem.